Jonesville, Michigan's Todd Crall joins us today. He recently ran in the Boston Marathon. Todd, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, and congratulations.
Thank you.
That had to be one of those experiences that I'm sure you'll never forget, and we're excited to have you in today to talk about it. When did you start running?
Probably got right back into it about 6 or 7 years ago.
And just something you always enjoyed to do when you're in school or something?
Yeah, I started in school and then kind of just hit or miss from there, and kind of took some time off and started dating my wife, well, my now wife. And she had a group of friends that were doing 5Ks, and next I know I was doing the 5Ks and signing up for marathons.
It's a decent jump from a 5K to a marathon. So talk about your very first marathon, getting ready for it and kind of competing in that.
Well, I did work up to it. I started with some 5Ks and then 10Ks and then did the half marathon. And then after that, then it was time to start thinking about the marathon. And then biggest thing is just getting the mileage in, getting the long runs in on the Sundays or on the weekends. And that's pretty much it.
Just kind of working your way up to it. Todd Crall joining us. He did the Boston Marathon earlier in the month, and it's the most famous marathon probably in the world, certainly in the United States, and people point to that as one of the big races. I know there is a process, right, to qualify and to be able to participate in it. Tell us how that works and how you were able to qualify.
Okay. There's age groups that you have to qualify for, and for what I think it's 18 to 30. It is 3 hours and 5 minutes, and then 5 minute less or 5 minutes more every 5 years of age. So I didn't qualify my first 5 years, or in the 18 to 35 or 18 to 30. So we kept trying. I ended up took 5 marathons and finally qualified. And so I had to have a 3:10. I ended up running a 3:08:30 at Bayshore Marathon up to Traverse City. Great marathon. And then another thing you have to do is you have to be under the certain amount of time. Under your qualifying time by a minute or so more. And then I made that too. So, yep.
And then what do? You fill out an application. How do you even start the process of contacting them?
Yep. Typical. You register. You send in your marathon that you qualified for. They check it. Then they let you know if you made it in or if you didn't.
So you get a letter or an email? How did you find out?
I think it was email at first. Yeah, and then the letters came later on, and this race is just unreal, the amount of things they do for you. They're always in contact.
You had to be fired up to find out that you qualified for the Boston Marathon. What was your reaction?
Definitely happy.
Yeah.
It just kind of relieved at the same time because it was a lot of marathons and just finally broke through.
So that was the goal, to get to the Boston Marathon all along.
No, not really.
Okay.
I ran my first marathon and ran it in 3:39 and find out the times, and then it was like, well, maybe I can do this. And then at that point, then it was kind of turn the switch on.
So talk about the trip out there. You have to, you're financing everything. You got to finance your own trip out there. You've got to make the trip. You've got to figure out where the start is and when you have to be there. Talk a little bit about the race morning before you started.
Okay. Race morning, it's what I did was wake up at 5 o'clock, quick jump in the shower, just kind of warm up, kind of wake up. Then, put the deodorants on, put the uniform, or put the, my running outfit on. Still debating on what to wear because I knew the weather was going to be bad that day. Not perfect running weather anyways. And then it was my wife and I headed on to the subway from the hotel. Subway down to downtown Boston. Then at that point, my wife and I split up, and I had to get on the buses. Then the buses took us 26.2 miles out to the Athletes Village. And then you sit around there for, seeing that I was in wave 1, we sat around for almost 2 hours. And then it was time to start the race. Then we had to walk about a mile to the actual starting line. and then wait for the gun, and then off we went.
So how many people were in that first wave, do you think?
The first wave had, I think it was 8,000.
Wow. So you just set a queue up in there in no particular order?
Yep, it's just they broke it up into, each wave has 7 corrals, and then each of those corrals is the fastest, the faster the people. So I was in corral 7, so I was towards the back of the first wave. Yep, that kind of put us in where we needed to be.
Were you nervous?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Every marathon, it's a marathon. It just really comes down to, it has to be a perfect day, and everything has to kind of mix well for it to go well.
Are you nervous because you want to compete well and show well, or are you nervous because you know it's going to hurt really bad?
A little of both. You have goals that you want to hit. My goal wasn't, I wanted to go and qualify for Boston, just to do it at Boston.
Right.
The weather did not allow that.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if it was the weather. There was, there's so many different things. It could have been the trip out there. But either way, yeah, I missed it. So, well, try another time.
But you finished it.
Yes. Yep. Did make it through. It was trying, but
What was talk a little bit about the race, because I know that it's an event. It's a holiday in Boston, race day. They have a baseball game that day. They have a huge thing for the run and all the rest of it. Were there a lot of people watching? Was it different than anything you'd experienced before?
Yep. This race, I would say, if you took all the people watching and they all held hand in hand, you could go all the way around the 26 miles. It's just unreal. And I've never seen a race while running that you're seeing somebody at least every 10 feet, 20 feet out cheering. I mean, that whole community out there is completely evolved around that race.
So the tragedy a couple of years ago is still in everybody's minds when there was a bombing at the Boston Marathon, obviously. Did you detect, the enhanced security and more security presence there? Is that something you noticed while you were getting ready?
Yeah, definitely. They're checking bags every which way. One of the things for me as a runner, you have to kind of a gear check, and it's usually stuff that you want to drop and then pick up at the end. Well, seeing that the Athletes Village is 26 miles away from the finish, you actually had to drop it at the finish, so it makes it more of a, what do I want to say, pain in the butt.
No doubt, yeah.
But, and there's fence all the way, the whole entire course is fenced off so people can't get to the course. There's cops every which way you look. Just, yeah, you can definitely tell it's definitely heightened security.
Was the track in the city the whole time? Do you get kind of spit out into a suburban area or a countryside? I mean, describe the route. Was it all urban?
Yep, all urban. You go through 7 different towns. It's what's unique about this trip, or about Boston, is you start 26 miles out away from the finish, where normally you're doing a big circle or a couple loops or something along that line. So yeah, that was completely different there.
You, along the way, people trying to hand you like drinks or Gatorade or something like that. You see that on TV. Was that happening?
Yep. I think it was almost every mile, maybe every mile and a half, that they had water stations. The Gatorade came first and then the water, but at every station it was one or the other.
You drink while you're running?
Yeah, well, you try.
Right.
It's really an art form that I haven't perfected yet. Most time you end up choking on it, getting most of it on your face. It comes down to, you kind of take the cup, you kind of smash it a little bit so you can kind of control how much you're putting in your mouth.
Try to get a little bit in there. And talk about the end. Obviously, you start to sense that you're getting close to the end and the finish line. Talk about that last mile.
Okay, the last mile. Well, as I'm coming to the last mile, I'm getting there. My hands are numb. I've picked up a Mylar blanket to kind of try to warm my hands up. That's not helping. I know pictures are coming up, and I'm like, okay, I got to drop the Mylar blanket. Make eye contact with a cop. The cop takes it, and then it was my goal for that last mile was just to run it all. just to keep running, no matter what the pace was, just to run.
You're in pain at this point.
Oh yeah, legs, feet, you name it, everything's hurting. I'm just want to be done. But at that point, you kind of forget that, and you're just focusing on the finish. That's all you're doing. It's unreal the amount of people I'm seeing cheering. You can't think, you can't do nothing. It's unreal. And then finally get to the finish, and all I'm thinking is, okay, gotta warm up because just very, very cold. And then you get through, you get your medal, and then they put another Mylar blanket on you. Then protein, and the supporters and the volunteers there are great. They were right there for the protein drinks. Some of the tin foil caps didn't come off, so they were right there with X-Acto knives, right there to take care of us, helping us out every way they could.
Todd Crall joining us. He recently ran the Boston Marathon, joining us on the Time Out Show. How long between when you finished the race and you're able to see your wife again?
It was actually fairly quick. We had gone down the day before, and they have a family meeting area, and then they have different signs for, it's probably every 20 foot or so. And we picked a sign, wanted to meet there. Her mother-in-law saw me, and at that point, so it was probably 10 minutes from the time I finished to that I saw my wife.
What was is there a recovery process you go through every time? Like, are you kind of dead the next couple of days, or do you bounce back pretty quickly?
It really depends on how that day went. I believe in active recovery, so I like to get out the next day, try to get some blood flowing. Many people think that for every mile you run, you take a day off. So,
you're not going to take 26 days off.
No. It's too much of my lifestyle now. It's not just this hobby that I have. It's my lifestyle now.
And it's exciting, and we're proud of you to have somebody from Hillsdale. I know a few other folks from Hillsdale have done it, but for you to have done it this year, and is it something that you think you'll always remember? And if so, why? What'll stand out for you?
Oh yeah, definitely remember it. Unreal, the amount of supporters, the fans. It's just unreal to see that many people lined up the entire race.
And you going to try for it again?
Oh yeah. The wife and I talked. Well, she okayed it for thinking maybe every 5 years, right, something like that.
So you'll be ready to rip it again in a couple more years, huh?
Yep, hopefully. Be in another age group, and then I'll have another 5 minutes, so it should come a little easier, hopefully.
Well, Todd, it's exciting. It's very cool. That's something that very few people can say that they ever did, to be able to compete in the Boston Marathon and to finish it. Congratulations, and thanks for joining us.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me.